How to Write a Book with No Experience by Ruth Welsby. Have you ever longed to write a book? 82% of the population have the desire to write their own book, but have done nothing about it. Are you one of those 82%? What is stopping you? Don't know where to begin? You don't have any experience and feel your writing will not be good enough to get published. Is your ambition thwarted because you are too overwhelmed or fearful to think you could actually write a book somebody would enjoy? Take action today and learn how to write a book with no experience or special skills. I will reveal to you how you can achieve that longed-for dream with a proven method that works. I know, because I achieved that dream. Share my experience, and learn how to write that longed-for book. This step-by-step guide will reveal how you can write a book with little or no experience. I will walk you through each stage from how to begin to write your book, to getting ready to be published. This book is specially written for the novice writers or would-be writers. If that is you, start today and write your book with this easy-to-understand proven guide. It is written in a clear, no jargon and practical manner, with short, clear sections and examples. I will guide you, and share my mistakes, errors and experiences in order for you to achieve the result of writing your own book. Don't remain one of the 82%. Start to fulfill your dream today. Introduction. How to write a book with no experience. Can it be done? How to write a book with no experience. Is that possible? Can you write a book with no experience? Yes, it is possible, and I can prove that it can be done, because I did just that. I will reveal to you how to do the same with no experience whatsoever, and get results. My experience was limited to the fact I could type and find my way hesitantly around a computer, but nothing complicated or technical. I will share with you the mistakes I made along the way, and how to get the results you dream of, and encourage you to take that step towards your goal. In order for me to attain my goal of writing a book, I read a tremendous amount of books on the subject of writing and publishing. Some of the authors claimed a book could be written within a few weeks. I am not disputing it can be done. I am just saying there is no way I could ever achieve anything within that time scale. I would also guess this would apply to you too. Most books I read were full of information, but were way too complicated at times. Words only experienced authors would know and understand were used, so that I spent more time looking up their meaning in a dictionary. I was wasting time and getting more and more anxious about my ability to write. I should have been writing my own book. With this in mind, I have written How to Write a Book with No Experience in the simplest and most practical format I knew how to. I have broken everything down into short, informative chunks to help you understand. In doing so, I will be using proven methods to achieve the best results. This book is for you, the inexperienced, the scared of failure you, the know nothing about writing a book you, the overwhelmed. Don't know where to begin you. This book can help you achieve your goal, point you in the right direction, and inspire you. Ask yourself the next two questions. Do you still have that same desire to write your own book and get it published? Are you scared, and don't know where to begin? Is your answer yes? Well, congratulations. You have taken the first steps to accomplish that goal by reading this ebook on how to write a book with no experience. Writing a novel is an incredible experience, but is also a very daunting one, especially with little or no experience. Here is a story in everyone. Or so the saying goes. If that is correct, we should be flooded with books and novels knee-deep, drowning in the printed creative word. Where are they? The answer is both sad and scary. They are locked away in the minds of would-be writers like you. And that is a deep shame. It is reckoned that 82% of the population would like to write a book. That is a lot of missing books. Those stories need to be unlocked now. I can help and guide you to unlock your stories. With the advent of ebooks and self-publishing being within reach of everyone, it is so much easier to achieve your dream with a little help and guidance. With somebody like you in mind, I have written How to Write a Book with No Experience. This book is not for the experienced writers. It is for the novice like you and me who desperately wanted to write a book but didn't have the experience of how to go about accomplishing that goal. My mission is to inspire you to write your story. I believe the intent is already there to write a book, or you would and have bought this how-to ebook. You have taken the first step towards achieving your goal. You have made it easier for yourself to cast away your demons and release your creativity to enable you to write that long-awaited book. I have written this ebook for you and other novice writers who have little or no experience, but have the desire to write, finish and publish their book. I want you to learn from my experience, and also from the mistakes I made when I began to write my book. A historical romance titled The Legend of Grace Roscoe. Maybe you have already written a book, but not had it published. Perhaps you have written part of the book and given up. If either of these scenarios applies to you, I want to inspire you and help you to achieve that goal of finishing your book and getting it published. If you have experience and are already published, this book is not intended for you, but thank you for reading this, and you are very welcome to join us on our journey. Why do I think I can help you? Change the question to how can I help you? I have been in the position you are in now. For years, I procrastinated. You will hear this word many times before the end of the book. It is the writer enemy. I found everything possible I could to prevent me from sitting down and writing. Why? I didn't know. I had the ideas, I had the research, and I was ready to go. I sat down to type my awesome story. Nothing happened. I just stared at the blank computer screen. All my notes, my ideas and my dreams lay scattered waiting for the Prince of Motivation to kiss and wake the Princess of Fear me to a new beginning, and at the same time keep the wicked witch of procrastinations at bay. I didn't know where to begin. There were too many challenges and not enough answers. I was scared of making a fool of myself. Does that sound anything like you? Well, you are not alone. Let us look at the challenges you may think are preventing you from achieving that goal of writing a book. Did you note I said think? Chapter 1. What are the challenges, and how to deal with them? An easy step-by-step guide. Image courtesy of the Path Traveler /FREDIGITALPHOTOS.net. How to write a book with no experience. What are the main challenges preventing us from writing a book? Have you thought what they are? If not, I will tell you. You and me. We are our own worst enemy. Next, procrastinations may sound a little harsh and critical, I know, but as I stated previously, and what I have heard is correct, that 82% of the population would like to write a book, then we are definitely not alone in our hesitations. The main challenge that prevented me, and I suspect you, and also the other 82% of the population from writing their book is fear. Yes, fear. That one little word can represent our reluctance and procrastination to write and complete our book. Or maybe you're not afraid, you're just overwhelmed. You'd love to move forward, but you don't know how to. Perhaps you think your writing isn't up to standard to get your book published. How do I know about these things, and know I can help you? Why? Because I have been in that unenviable place you are in now. You know, if you don't do it, you will regret it for the rest of your life. I almost did. Over a period of at least 50 years, yes, I did say 50, I desperately wanted to write a book. I made every excuse imaginable to myself, which coincided and fueled my fears. See if some of my fears I have listed below are the same or similar to yours. If yes, I can help you. I had no experience. Poor education. I left school at 15 with no qualifications. My grammar is appalling. ICOULD spell. I had no time. I had no confidence. I worried what people would say. All my fears led to the wicked witch of procrastinations cackling at me, reminding me I was a failure. I longed for a kiss from the Prince of Motivation to wake me up and chase away my fears. My kiss of motivation came in rather a daunting manner, and the saying "very cloud has a silver lining" comes to mind. I developed cancer. IWAS and immortal after all. I didn't know if I had the time to allow old witchy procrastination to get in my way of writing my book. I needed to get my story out there, and that is exactly what I did. I got my kiss from Prince Motivation, not quite how I had envisaged, but it did the trick. As I look at that list now, I can believe I let my ambitions to write a book be thwarted by those hurdles I thought were unsurmountable, and yet with a little help and guidance, can be so easily overcome. I can report I am now well, and have published my story as a Kindle ebook. http://the-legend-o-f-grace-ebook/dp/booj20nom/ I know so many of you feel the same way as I did and can quite get past the fear and the overwhelming anxiety to even get started. There was nobody out there to help me. Yes, there were loads of books on how to write, but frankly they were all too complicated. In fact, I stumbled at the first fence when the word protagonist was mentioned. I had never heard of one before. I thought they were talking about ghosts. When I discovered it only meant the main characters, I wondered why it hadn't been explained in the book I was reading to seek help and information. It was, I believed because the author presumed I knew what it meant. This made me think other novice writers seeking advice must experience the same problems as I did. This gave me the motivation to write how to write a book with no experience in the simplest, clearest and easiest manner I was able to. My aim is to lead you step by step towards your goal of writing your book until it is ready to be published. I am talking about KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing Platform. Whenever I discuss anything to do with publishing, I will explain things in the easiest of terms, so please forgive me if you think I am being patronizing, but I will presume you are like me, starting off with no experience. I will share the wonderful princess of motivation with you, but without the trauma I had to go through to find them, and let them inspire you to write that book. I make no promises of wealth, or that your book will even sell. I will show you how I did it and guide you in the simplest and easiest way I know for you to understand and achieve your goal. It is you who must do all the promising to yourself, to commit and believe in yourself, as the famous advert states, because you are worth it. I have shared my main fears with you. I now suggest you get a notepad, or if you prefer sit at your computer and begin to make a list of what obstacles are standing in your way. Listening to others, I have come up with a small list, but you can add to it: anxiety of failure, no confidence, no support, no time, no money. Being a perfectionist, add to that short list. My list: I had no experience. My early education was poor. My grammar is appalling. I could and spell. I had no time. I worked full-time. I had no confidence. I worried what people would say. You can see there is a pattern to fear and procrastinations developing for each reason. Not to write. We will go through them one by one. Although some of your obstacles may not be on the list, you can deal with them in exactly the same way. No time. Time is a precious commodity, and it can appear to a busy people that there is a spare moment in the day to waste on a dream. The misconception you have to give up your life as you now know it, in order to write a book and get it published, is wrong. True, you may have to do a little more planning, but it can be done. You don't need to write every day, but if you can, it will help you get into the habit, and of course, your book will be finished quicker. You can start by writing in chunks, little or big ones. It all depends on what time you have managed to wheedle out of your busy life. Do you have a laptop? Can you write a few sentences in your break at work? Can you get up an hour earlier? They didn't work for me. I could never depend on a break, and getting up early is so aberrant to me I shudder at the thought. But it may work for you. My main chunk of time was stolen from watching TV. I used to come home exhausted and sit and watch the television, a load of rubbish, half the time till bedtime. Instead, I began to write, just small amounts to begin with, until my story progressed to the point I just had to write. Miraculously, I found the time. It just appeared the more I got involved with my writing. So my advice is to start small. Even just a sentence or two is a start. You are not in a race, so take your time. Tip: I read this tip in several articles and have used it myself with some success. Leave your work halfway through a sentence, so that when you return to it, you just have to finish the sentence, and you eat away again without wasting any time. My own little hint is to use the sticky notes on your computer to just write 1 or 2 words to remind you where you were going with that sentence. No confidence. You can envisage ever being able to write something somebody may actually enjoy. You can, but you will never know unless you try. But if it makes you feel more confident, don't tell anybody until you have a few chapters under your belt. I didn't until I had actually published my ebook. It was my guilty secret. I hid away and didn't discuss my writing with anybody. I was frightened they would laugh. Why? I don't know. It was just a fear. My confidence grew with each chapter, and when I reached the wonderful landmark of having completed 5,000 words, I knew I could do it. Send what you have written after a few pages to your Kindle. You can do this by using the email Kindle gave you when you joined up. It usually your name and then kindle.com. Save the file to your desktop for ease of recovering it and give it a simple name. Say Jelly. Send it to your Kindle so when you switch on you will see the file name Jelly with a new banner across it. Open it and preen. You may find errors at this stage and the formatting might not be right, but they are your words. It is a real confidence boost. Another boost is to hear you writing. Use either your own computer text-to-speech program or by specific software. Although the voices sound a little flat, it gives you an idea how your work is flowing. Of course, to try these confidence boosters you will need to have written something first, so give it a go. Anxiety of failure. This fits in the same category as above and can be overcome by the same process. But you must begin to write first, just a few pages, but straight from the heart, and then read or listen to what you have written. You will be amazed at what you have produced. It does and have to be word perfect at this stage. If it's not what you want, and you hate it, don't delete. Store it in a file. You may like it later when you are a little kinder to yourself and use it as an experience. Being a perfectionist. Perfectionist is a word I didn't think belonged in any descriptions of me. I am a person who never reads instructions. I bake by throwing ingredients together and hope for the best. I never check how to use equipment correctly until I become unstuck. So it was a surprise to me to realize I was trying to be a perfectionist in my writing. Why was this? Again, it was back to the fear of failure. People will laugh at me. I will hate myself, the grammar is all wrong, I have used the wrong words, and so on. Who really cared? Only me. I was the biggest obstacle to all my dreams, and you are too. Your dream of writing a book is within your grasp. Your destiny is in your hands. I know, really I do. When it came to editing my book, I began to over-edit. It became a fixation. I wanted it perfect. I will be a laughingstock if my book isn't perfect. But guess what? My book isn't perfect. I have revised it twice since it was published, which is so easy to do on Kindle publishing. So relax, just write, errors and all. Get your story down and on paper. Most of the errors can all be ironed out later when we talk about editing in a later chapter. Remember, there is no such thing as perfect. What we are aiming at is the quality. Embrace failure and know that this will be hard and you will mess up. Be okay with it. Give yourself grace. Start again. That what will sustain you, not your high standards of perfection. No support. Books like this one are here to support you. There are hundreds on the market. If you e-writing in secret from your nearest and dearest, try joining a writing group. These can be found online. Many will critique your first few chapters, but be certain at this stage you are ready for criticism, however constructive. A critical view too early could plunge you back into deep self-doubt. Be gentle with yourself. Do not expose yourself too early to a situation that could cause your confidence and creativity to falter. Poor education leading to poor grammar and spelling. I have put these problems together because they can be fixed together. There is little that can be done about poor education in the past, but you can change your quality of education in the future. You are what you are. There is some excellent software on the market that can check your grammar, and of course your computer will already have a spell check on it. Always use the spelling check tool. If you haven't already got any of the other software, and if you can afford it, I strongly advise you to get them. Microsoft does highlight your grammar errors with a wiggling green line under the offending sentence. I was aware grammar was my strong point, but was astonished how poor it really was. I have learned so much along the way, so to me buying the grammar checking software has been a win-win situation, and worth every penny. There is also a very useful software program that critiques and edits. For example, it tells you when your pacing is too slow. If pacing is too slow, your story may become boring, and you will be in danger of losing your reader's interest. Or if you have too many words ending with lie, or too many sentences with was or had in them, and many more. I made it into a little game in the end to see if I could achieve 100%, with no errors. Wow, did I feel good when I reached anything from 90% and upwards. I also kept a free thesaurus on my toolbar and used it frequently, checking the meaning of words and replacing words I repeated too often. Even with these wonderful tools I still made errors. I realized my manuscript will never be perfect and had to accept the fact. My confidence now stems from using the tools available to me and the knowledge I aim to do the best I can. In the editing chapter later, I will discuss these further. No money. This is probably the easiest of all the problems to solve. If you have a computer with a word processor, that is all you need. You can write your story for free. You can make a cover for your ebook for free. I will show you in another chapter how to do that. And you can publish your ebook for free. Sorted. You can spend money if you desire, as much or as little as you want. I paid for the extra software, and thought of it as an investment, with the hope I would write more books. You can find the same sort of grammar editing tools for free if you are prepared to trawl the internet. All the problems from above are solvable, and I can prove the solutions I have given you do work because they were all my problems. The only problem I can solve from a distance is you. You must do that. Think carefully about what you have just read, and decide if you really want to find the solutions to boost your confidence, to enable you to knock down those hurdles standing in the way of your dream to write a book. It won't happen overnight like an evaporating mist, but it will happen if you want it to. Is your hunger strong enough? Do you still want to write that book? Yes, so let's do it. This is the reason I have written this book. How to write a book with no experience is to help people like you achieve your goal in the easiest and simplest way possible. Start the planning now. With the knowledge you will also be solving the problem of your lack of experience. You will be solving that problem and achieving your goal easily with every wonderful, magnificent word you write, every error, every deletion, and every mistake to produce and publish your very own book. Then you will understand the exhilaration and the sheer joy of seeing your work in print. There is no finer reward, I can assure you. But you cannot do any of this staring at a blank page. Quote, everything in life is writable about if you have the outgoing guts to do it and the imagination to improvise. The worst enemy to creativity is self-doubt. Sylvia Plath. In this chapter, we identified what was holding us back from fulfilling our dreams of writing a book. We have learned some strategies on how to cope with those obstacles, and how to remove some of the hurdles altogether. We are now ready to move forwards. Chapter 2. How to get started writing your book. A step-by-step guide. Getting started. Image courtesy of konaspix/fredigitalphos.net. In this chapter, we will discuss how to get started and begin writing your book. We will check out how and where to find ideas. We will discuss what genres are and which ones you may be interested in. We will learn how to upstart our imagination. Where do you begin? With an idea. If you have an idea already buzzing around in your head, write it down and begin to explore its potential, and write down different scenarios as to where your idea may take you. I will get back to you in a moment, when we can discuss your story outline. Now we will concentrate on those of you that have no ideas at this stage. Ask yourself, where is the best place to find an idea? This will depend on your interests, what you know, what you like, and even the things you hate. Is there anything there to inspire you? Some very quick brainstorming ideas from that list. Hobbies. This subject can include anything literally. For example, do you go sailing? If you know, like, or even hate sailing, it can become a good foundation to the story. Your sailing idea can take you from pirates to cruise ships. You would be able to set it in any century or even the future, and write in any genre: teen, romance, crime, science fiction, historical story, or anything else that may take your fancy. When choosing the location, the world is your oyster, the choice is yours. Now take your own list, and start adding in any hobbies, experiences in your workplace, at school, in your childhood, or anything else that may flash into your brain whilst carrying out this little exercise. Don't forget the everyday places. For example, in the supermarket. Have you ever listened in on a conversation, and then wondered what happened next? You could fill that gap with your own story. The hairdressers are a superb place. You can hear the juiciest gossip, with a full explanation of who did what to who, by the unsuspecting client who speaks extra loud in order for her to be heard over the hairdryer. Public transport. Do you ever play the game of guessing what the person sitting opposite you does for a living? This can take you into the office, a jungle, or even into space. Test your imagination and make up little scenes involving the subjects you have thought about. A story in a newspaper, on the television, or in a magazine. Headlines are a wonderful source of ideas. Let your imagination run wild with the subject matter. Work or place of employment. I think there is enough material in most workplaces to cover all genres and ideas. Next time you are there, watch and listen, be aware of people reactions and body language, and give your imagination full rein, no holding back. You now have got your embryonic idea, and probably found more ideas than you actually need once your imagination started to kick in. Don't throw those precious ideas away. TIP. Make a folder and keep it on your desktop, and rename it Scrap. Anything you feel you want to delete or throw away, just cut and paste it into your Scrap folder. You may need it at a later date for your next book. This book is all about how to write with no experience. You may not have the experience, but you will require one essential component, and that is your imagination. Don't panic if you think you are a little imaginatively challenged. We can nurture it back to full strength, and you will be amazed once you start writing how it will develop naturally. The ideas you noted down previously whilst searching for your main novel idea is testimony to your imagination, however rusty it may have been. But now it is beginning to spring back into life. If you are worried about your imagination, try this little exercise. Write the gist of a conversation you have overheard / or headline you have seen, and add to it, or change the beginning or the end. Include anything your imagination desires: aliens, pirates, gangsters, lovers, or evil beings, and see where it can take you. Can you mold anything you have seen or heard around your main idea? This may be hard at first, and your mind may refuse to cooperate if you haven't been using your imagination since childhood. It is now time to get it out, dust it down and give it full throttle. Remember one thing: most good stories have already been told. There are not many new stories, just variations on the old themes. For instance, think about fairy tales. Many stories are just a new version of one of these. Why don't you think of one, and change it with your imagination? Make up your own version. For example, change the 3 bears into 3 brothers who try to woo the lovely Goldilocks with gifts, the euphemism being the porch. Change Little Red Riding Hood into a girl who has fallen in love with a handsome, but wolfish man. She knows she should walk away, and not go down that path. It would be too dangerous, but she just can't help herself. These are very simplistic examples, but do you get the idea? Genre: is there a particular genre you want to write in? Don't get too hung up on this. I don't think it is absolutely essential for you to make a decision at this stage. You can wait until you are ready to publish, so you are aware of the preferred category you want your book to be displayed in. There is one significant time when you will need to know the genre prior to sitting down to write your book, and that will be if you have decided to target a specific audience. Genre equal group, classification, category or class. This means, for example, the story is about romance, history, children, erotica or science fiction, and so on. You may be able to narrow down your genre in your ideas research. For example, it may be useless doing your research for a romance novel in All Man Club unless your book has a gay theme running through it, or bakery when all the action takes place in a lifeboat. You may not have decided which genre you plan to write in. That fine, you can add it later. Your story may change and take you down another path from the one you had planned. Otherwise, you can leave your writing pretty road until you have an idea what genre your writing is taking you into. If you really have no idea and would like a clue, stop and think about your storyline. Look and listen. Check books in different genres and see which ones are the nearest to what you envisage your book to be about. Get a notebook and write down what you hear or see and what your reaction is to any of the items listed below. We have mentioned romance. This can happen anywhere and usually have a happy ending, but there are always exceptions to that rule. History: does the museum delight you? Do you adore period costume drama? Children playing, teenagers flirting or preening or talking loudly in a group? Can wait for the next episode of Doctor Who? What type of books do you like to read? What was your reaction to each of the categories? Did your pulse rise a little? Did you smile or did you scowl and give a little shudder? Does your story follow or include any, however remote, any of the above? Okay. This is a very unscientific way to analyze what would suit you best, but do you get the idea? You will need to have an interest in your subject matter, although you don't need to be an expert at this stage. Research will help you fill in any glaring gaps, but you will need to have a good strong storyline, and we will discuss this in a later chapter. So you have picked a genre. You can change this as your book progresses. As stated, your story previously may take you into another classification as it develops. Nothing is written in stone at this stage. In this chapter, we have learned where to discover ideas for our book. We have discussed how and why our imagination is so important and how to nurture it back to life. We have learned that genres can be groups, classification and categories in which we can write our story. We are now ready to learn what is often thought of as the hardest part of writing a book: how to begin your story. Chapter 3. Where to begin. Setting out your story. The beginning. In this chapter, we will discuss how to begin writing your book. We will begin to plan the setting of your story, where and how it takes place. We will identify who your central characters are. We will discuss what questions we will need to ask to move your story forwards. The beginning of the story can often be the hardest part. It can also be difficult to decide on your word count or how large your book needs to be. Here are a few samples. 10,000 words, a pamphlet 20,000 words, short e-book, novella or print book 40,000 words, good-sized non-fiction book 60,000 words, longer non-fiction book 80,000 words words, typical novel length. If you are a first-time writer, I would advise you to start small. Don't get overwhelmed to begin with. Write as if your book is going to be short, and as your creativity takes hold you can always expand your first notion. If you get bogged down with a large epic, it may never get finished and will end up molding, unloved in a drawer. That is not what this book is about. How to start. The best thing to do is to start small and as broadly as possible, but keep focused all the same. Say, for example, You want to write a romantic novel. When does it take place? Is it a modern-day romance, Regent or Victorian historical romance? This is one of those decision points you may come to right away. Say it actually takes place now, which leads to the next question. How now? Today now. To move forward, you can start to lay out the beginning of a scenario. For example, your main character finds her great-grandmother on a family ancestry research site. This is a revelation, because great-grandmother has never been spoken about, even her name had been erased from the front page of the family Bible. Rumor had it, she had disgraced the family, but nobody knows what really happened. Perhaps you would like this main character aim to be to uncover the answer. You now have several fundamental questions. What was great-grandmother's sin? When did it take place? Where did it take place? What actions does your main character take to discover the mystery? Did they find anybody else? What led to great-grandmother downfall? You don't know. Why? Yet that is one of the things you must discover. How? Again, this must be uncovered through asking yourself questions. Develop your characters. Start with the obvious. In this case, you have already created two characters, young woman and her great-grandmother. You can determine characteristics of both simply by the setting, and expand your characters in the process. Tip: you can find free templates for character sketches on the internet. Just Google them. There is a presumption, great-grandmother would most likely to have been married. She had great-grandchildren, so there would be a great-grandfather. Was he involved in a scandal? Continue along in this fashion, extending from one character to all the others that they may interact with. At first try and keep the amount of characters to a minimum, say 3 main ones and about 3 minor ones. This will help you keep on track until you gain a little more experience. In the process of developing your characters, you will likely ask yourself the same question your readers will soon be asking: what happens next? Use these questions to develop the story. You know from your story that the young woman wants to find out what happened to her great-grandmother. Since all she has in the beginning is the documentation of her great-grandmother's existence she found on the Ancestry website, she delves deeper and finds more documentation, and discovers great-grandma's story that leads her halfway across the world to South Africa. Knowing these things, you can see issues and patterns emerging. Continue along this process of creating an arc, and at this point you could even hazard a tentative ending. The young woman discovers why great-grandmother ran off and left her family, to sail halfway across the world. Now all you need to do is write down everything in the middle, but before you do, write down the answers to your questions. Let's have a quick recap. To ascertain what you will have achieved so far. You have removed the obstacles of fear and self-doubt by solving, or are in the process of solving, the problems preventing you from achieving your dream of writing a book. Remember, there are still 82% of the population still out there longing to write a book, but haven't had the nerve or inspiration to take that first step. You have an idea for your story. This is a significant step you have accomplished, but it can still be changed at any time, until it feels right for you. You have established who your main protagonists, main characters are, and the main antagonists, the baddies, the troublemakers, the ones who prevent our main characters from achieving their goals. You have established your main character's goals. These can be changed as your story progresses. You have begun to ask questions: what, when, where, who, why. You may not know the answers at this stage. You may have to ask those questions again and again as each action takes place and your story evolves. You may have decided on your genre, or decided to wait and see. You tentatively decided on the word count of your book, knowing you can change it later if needed. You are now ready to outline your storyline goals and plots. Chapter 4: Your Guide to Story Goals, Plot Outlines and Structure. Image courtesy of Stuart Miles /FREDIGITALPHOTOS.net. Goals, Plot Outline and Structure. In this chapter, you will need to check out what your story goal is. We will discuss the story goal, and how it can affect your characters. You will learn how to outline the arc of your narrative. You will be given the opportunity to learn questions that need to be asked to move your story on. Goals to enable your story to grow. It will require a goal or problems that will need achieving or solving. The story goal or problem is the first and most important element of any plot. This is the organizing idea around which the entire plot of your novel will be based. Without this target, your plot will become just a haphazard series of events with no meaning or purpose, one that will leave the reader wondering, what was the point of that story? And you really don't want that to happen. With a clear goal, your reader has an understanding that allows an appreciation and of the relevance of each event in the story. It encourages your reader to become emotionally involved in your novel and to care about the outcome, and will help make the story meaningful to them. What is a story goal? Essentially, the story goal is what the story is about. It is also a target, aim, objective or aiding towards. However, we need to clarify that a little because a story can be about different things, depends on what does your main characters want, what problem is he/she trying to solve, and why. There are many kinds of goals. For instance, you can have an external goal, such as doing something, discovering something, resolving a situation, bringing about a desired future, or getting something to change direction. Or you can have internal goals, such as changing an attitude or opinion, resolving an aspect of one's nature, getting someone to change, becoming a different person, or taking on a new role. The simplest way to explain a story goal is what your main character wants to achieve, or the problem he/she wants to solve. The story goal affects or involves other characters. You may get confused when choosing your story goal, because the protagonist's main character can have any number of goals or problems in the story. What distinguishes the story goal from any other goal is that the story goal involves many characters besides the protagonist. In fact, almost every character in your novel will have a stake in whether the story goal is achieved. For example, a young woman discovers her great-grandmother on the Ancestry website. The story goal is the young woman wanting to discover what happened to her great-grandmother, and to uncover the mystery that caused such a scandal. We don't know about any other characters yet except the young woman and her great-grandmother, and possibly a great-grandfather. Let's presume her parents, or other family members don't want her to find out what happened. Their goals will be to prevent her. Or maybe it is simple as they just don't want her to leave and travel halfway around the world. They are concerned for her. Their target is keeping her safe. She would then have another goal on top of the main one. Find out the reason why they don't want her to discover the secret or to travel. Does the young woman have a love interest? What does she want? What problem is she trying to solve? Why does her love interest try to thwart her attempts at achieving her story goal? Once you have chosen your story goal, and decided on your character's main objective, take some time to consider how that goal will be important to other characters in your novel. Previous example are the people in your main character's world all struggling with the same kind of issues, for which they must either find or fail to find their own solution. Or are their hopes pinned on the success or failure of the protagonist? There are so many questions to be answered. It is now time for you to create the mapped outline of your plot and put it into place. A sketch of your story. Once your story goal has been established, you will need to develop a plan. Goal is for the young woman to solve the mystery. The plan is what you want her to do to reach that goal. Scary times, wicked witch procrastination is hovering. Give her the boot and get ready to commit. You have already achieved one of the hardest things in writing, and that was when you established your idea and asked the pertinent questions to begin developing your plot. You may now be feeling a modicum of excitement, you are nearly ready to start the really awesome part writing. Just wait a little longer. There are a few more things we need to get in place first. At this stage it's a good idea to make a primary outline as a springboard to bounce off. You have already discovered a quick sketch of your beginning and a tentative ending. What you need is to expand the middle. This is the heart and soul, the engine and the driving force of your story. Plot outline. The outline will help you define the arc of your narrative. The beginning, the development of the plot, the characters, the settings, events leading to the big conflict or climax, and then the resolution and ending. Conflict. At this point I would like to make clear what a conflict is, as they are a critical element of your story. You have conflicts in your scenes, your chapters, and of course throughout your storyline. Without them your story would be bland and boring. I made the terrible mistake of thinking a conflict was an augment, or a fight. I imagined a lot of saber rattling. This caused me a lot of anxieties, especially as I was writing a romance. How was I going to fit all those augments in? But no. A conflict within a scene or paragraph can be as simple as your character wanting to go for a drive, but was unable to find their keys. They were prevented from achieving their goal of going for a drive because of the lost key. Conflict. So in short, the conflict is anything small or large that prevents your character from achieving their goals. This can also include internal conflict. Maybe they want to be a nicer person, the goal, but another character keeps aggravating them. The conflict. This leads them to forget their promise to themselves and they say or do something nasty. Your plot outline is like a plan you can work from, and will depend on how you like to work as to how detailed it is. There are plotters and there are pantsers. Plotters diligently spend ages writing and planning in full detail the outline of the story. This brings them security. They know where they are going, how they are going to get there, and what to expect when they arrive. They may make sketches, and plan each step their characters take, set the scene, the location, the weather, even the date and time, up to the closing notes. The plan can be as detailed as a mini-novel. The entire idea is out on paper in outline form before the author begins to write. I could only muster a very sketchy outline. I already knew my characters and the location as my book is based on a true story. I tried the detailed outlining but came unstuck at the starting point. I didn't really know where I was going. My style is called a hadster. In other words, I fly by the seat of my pants and make it up as I go along. Or so I thought. As a writer, I thought a pantster was a writer who just sat down and wrote. Someone who let the story and the characters evolve and guide them through their first draft and then go back to revise here and there. Although I mentioned that I flew by the seat of my pants and didn't know where my story was going, that was and strictly true. I could verbally describe the full story, it was all in my head. I found writing it in detail too inflexible for me at that stage. You must choose your own method, there is no right or wrong. It's the end results that matter. Tip: do not allow the wicked witch procrastinations from hijacking a too detailed plan and prevent the story being written. Do enough as a guide, but not so much you will get bogged down. In my sketchy plan I did have the essential basics of the main characters, the location and the main plot, probably about the same amount as the story sketch above about great-grandma, although I must confess I did stumble once or twice and lost my way. Don't know which character to focus on, or whether you want to set your story in the haunted forest, the Caribbean, a town or an ice planet. No need to panic. Just try one. Remember, you don't need to have a fully developed outline or even a half-developed one before you start. It's up to you how you want to work. It is your manuscript, your creation, your baby. Pick whichever way best suits you. What are the basic outlines you may need? Character outlines. This should include your protagonist's main characters and can be highly detailed to include their coloring, mannerisms and personality, or so basic, you only identify their gender. If you answer like me, their details will develop as you type. Don't forget to question, the answers will push your story forward. General setting. This is important for many storylines but not for all. It's a good idea to include something even if you don't add it to your book. It will help you develop your plot, keeping you focused on the whereabouts of your characters. Consequences. What disaster will happen if the goal is not achieved? What is your main character afraid will happen if she doesn't achieve the goal or solve the problem? The answer to these questions is called the consequence of the story. The consequence is the negative situation or event that will result if the goal is not achieved. This is an important part of your plot outline, as it can develop conflict and resolution. The combination of goal and consequence will create dramatic tension in your plot, and make it meaningful. As your character discovers the terrible consequences if their quest fails. Requirement. This describes what must be accomplished in order to achieve the goal. You can think of this as a checklist of one or more events. As the requirements are met in the course of the novel, your reader will feel the characters are getting closer to the attainment of the goal. What could the requirements be in our great-grandmother story? If the goal for our young woman is to discover the secret of the scandal, she may need to research, interview people, find documents, or even travel around the world. What will be the requirements be for her to be able to do this? Will she need to hire somebody, or take time off work? Research. The word research can conjure all sorts of meaning to different people. They may think of it in the terms of academia, science, experiments, something heavy and its relevance misunderstood. A barrier comes down the minute the word research is mentioned. Let me explain how exciting it can be in developing your plot. Each piece of material, document, or any information gleaned from your chosen area of research is like a jigsaw, fitting into place, and filling the gaps of your story. Research is, in this case, is anything you can discover that will help your storyline. For example, your notes, photographs, books you have read or place you have visited, newspaper cuttings, the answers to the questions you have asked, anything that will flesh out your characters and give strength to your plot. With the internet, it is so much easier. You don't need to leave your chair. But it can be a good idea if your story is set within a location you can visit. You can soak up the atmosphere as you think of your characters and storyline and see what inspiration you may get. You can then add this to the outline of your story plot. It may help as you begin to describe your story. In a previous paragraph, I mentioned how some writers can zip through the draft of a novel by the seat of their pants. Others keep tabs on their characters' every move. You will need to have a structure to your plot to prevent you from actually osing the plot. However, your outline is constructed. When you begin writing, you will need to fill in those gaps with meaningful words. This can happen with perfectly formed sentences flowing from your fingertips racing across the keyboard, or it can be slow, methodical sentence writing. Then there is the frenzied writer who writes a random paragraph without an outline and then does and know where to go, because they haven't got anything to guide them. An equally frenzied deleting session begins. This scenario can happen over and over again until the writer gives up, exhausted, frustrated, and feeling a failure. One little tip: if you feel it necessary to delete a whole paragraph, done. Put them in the folder you named scrap. You will be amazed how useful with a bit of editing and jiggering about that redundant prose can be later on. Structure specifically. Your structure will help create a plot that will keep your readers engaged and bring the story to an emotionally satisfying conclusion. You want to map out how and why your characters are going to grow and develop the emotional journey of your book. You want to decide what themes your novel will explore, and make sure the final draft delivers a message that rings true. And you want to make sure that these elements tie together well. You will require a clear story structure to guide you through those times when you get stuck and haven't the faintest idea which direction to head to next. Every good story has a beginning, middle, and end. The incidents that make up the plots are linked by cause and effect. The story is about a change of fortune for the main character. You should now be aware of where your main character or protagonist starts in the story, and you have a good idea where they might end up. You got a good idea of the trials and tribulations they may face along the way. So break up the book into 3 to 5 acts. I prefer to keep it simple and only have 3, and then plan where they are going to be physically and emotionally at the beginning and the end of each act. To use the 3-act notion, you will need first act. This is where your idea takes off and you can make the decisions of the genre, maybe, the time, place, and who your main characters are. It is the part that will hopefully get your readers hooked. It has been said if you don't hook your reader within the first 5 pages, you have lost them. For example, a hook is something you use in your introduction to get your reader interested in reading the rest of your book. It's usually in the very first paragraph. Basically, it's a type of writing tool to hook your reader in so that they wonder what happens. It feeds their curiosity. It leaves them with questions they want to be answered. It is anything that can make the reader buy and read your book. As a small exercise, check out about 10 books, and read the first few pages. Was your interest piqued? Did you want to know more? Was there questions forming from that first page you wanted answering? If yes, those authors had hooked you. You can continue to do this throughout your book, throwing little tidbits to keep your readers curious and anxious to turn the page. From my own reading experience, I'm not sure I agree 100%. I do agree it has to have an interesting start, but if I feel confident the story is going to develop, can find the stage very interesting, as I get to know the characters and look around their world. On condition this phase is not too drawn out and becomes boring. It is at this stage your main character goals are revealed. Second act. This is the part where the goals of the story are usually thwarted by conflict and turbulence, and what actions take place to set the story goals back on track or not, as the case might be. By this time, your readers have reached the stage where they have built a rapport with your characters and begin to be emotionally engaged. They worry about your main characters, and what will become of them. They care what happens to them. Your readers are now hooked. Third act. Here is where the resolution and climatic stages sits. When the lovers get together or part forever, the baddie gets his comeuppance, or the mystery is solved. All loose ends will be gathered together to avoid your readers wondering what happened there. Your readers must be left satisfied. Remember, nothing is set in stone. You can make as many changes as you wish. Change the plot, change the characters, where they live, anything. You have covered a phenomenal amount and should be seeing the skeleton of your book begin to emerge. Your excitement is growing as you receive kisses from Prince and Princess motivation, enabling you to lock your writing can-do-it fears away in the dark dungeons along with the wicked witch of procrastinations, and we will continue with scenes. To recap on your progress, goals have been identified. You have learned about conflicts. You have created an outline of your plot, identified some of the requirements to achieve the goals, identified some of the consequences of either achieving or failure to achieve the goals. You have developed the structure of your plot, by dividing your story into 3 acts. the start, the middle and the end. You have outlined your main characters. You established or have thought about the general setting of your story. You have researched or are in the process of researching the material you will require to flesh out your storyline. Chapter 5. What are scenes? Paragraphs and chapters. Scenes, paragraphs and chapters. What are scenes? Wikipedia definition and fiction. A scene is a unit of drama. A sequel is what follows. An aftermath. Together, scene and sequel provide the building blocks of plot for short stories, novels, and other forms of fiction. Is that clear to you? How about, if you write a short section in which something significant happens in a single setting, unit of drama, then it is a scene. The scene directly affects what happens later. What happens later is the sequel. Aftermath scenes are the building blocks of your story that lead to the resolution or end. Remember, we discussed that you should break up your storyline into 3 chunks. The beginning, something that starts the action or creates a purpose. The middle, it will have a complication, conflict or problem. The ending, a climax that determines the outcome and resolution to show what that outcome is. This is exactly the same for a scene. If you have an outline for the entire story, you will have an idea how the scene fits your story, and what has to happen. Perhaps the scene will provide a plot event, an important decision or action. Perhaps it will show a conversation where a character conflict emerges. Perhaps it should present an event that illustrates your theme. You can write an outline for a scene just as you did for your story. Do not be too precise and give yourself too much in advance for every scene, as you could be in danger of killing off your spontaneity of thought. But you can certainly jot down a point-form note about how you want the scene to go just before you write it. Paragraphs. What is a paragraph? Wikipedia definition. A paragraph, from the Greek paragraphos, to write beside or written beside, is a self-contained unit of discourse in writing dealing with a particular point or idea. A paragraph consists of 1 or more sentences. Though not required by the syntax of any language, paragraphs are usually an expected part of formal writing, used to organize longer prose. In other words, the paragraph sits inside of your scenes and sticks to one thing at a time, deals with a particular point or idea. For example, your young woman is discussing finding a document. You want her to now make arrangements to travel. They are 2 different points, so you will need a new paragraph for each one, although they could both sit within the same scene. So it means she could discuss the documents, paragraph 1, and then make arrangements to travel, paragraph 2, all in one scene. A scene is usually around 500 words, and the paragraph can be anything from 1 to 2 sentences. Chapters. What is a chapter? From Wikipedia. Chapter is one of the main divisions of a piece of writing of relative length, such as a book. Chapters can be numbered chapter 2 or chapter 21, or they can be titled. Mary Goes to Town. Chapters are usually made up of 2 or more scenes, although there could be just 1 scene in a chapter. This is usually the exception. Chapters with only 1 scene are usually fairly short. Of course, this won't be the case if the scene itself is long or elaborate. Chapters can be short, although if you make them too short and have too many of them, they may become less effective. Extremely long chapters, on the other hand, can be cumbersome. Experiment and think of a graph going up and down, or short and long as in chapters and scenes. Image courtesy of BLUMBA/FREDIGITALPHOTOS.net. The length of the chapter will depend on the audience for whom the novel is written. Children books have short chapters, whereas adult books have mostly long chapters. How do you create chapters in a novel, you may ask? This will depend on a few things. In adventure and mystery novels, you can complete a chapter ready to create a new one with the cliffhangers. This does and have to be as big as a life or death scenario. It can be as small as somebody leaving a room. Where you should leave your chapter would be when you feel a major shift in the story, or a change in point of view, a new scene or a sequel. It can be your decision. Short chapters are easy to write. As mentioned, they often consist of a single scene and therefore rarely become boring or complicated. Long chapters can be dull if not written properly. As you write your novel, try to strike a balance so that each chapter is interesting to your readers. Tip: where possible, try and vary the size of your paragraphs, scenes and chapters to make it more interesting for your readers. If you remember, it was mentioned that the average scene is about 500 words. So make some 300 or 400 and then others 800. Think of it like a graph going up and down. Do the same with your paragraphs. Have some short ones interspersed with a lengthy one here and there. Do the same with your chapters to give your readers a better reading experience. Chapter 6. A simple but successful guide on how to write dialogue. In one of our earlier chapters, we discussed the merits of creating a sketch plan of your story for you to use as a map. Along the same theme, I would strongly advise you to make a fairly detailed character sketch as well. Although you will have completed a basic one in your previous plan, you will now need to flesh out your characters. Character sketch example. You can find hundreds of free character map templates on the internet. Have some fun and browse for the one you would like to use. Why should you create a character map? It is important, especially in dialogue, to ascertain how that person speaks. It will help reveal your characters. It is also important for you to hear them. If you have an idea what they look like, it is easier for you to decide how you want them to sound. Are they from another country or a different planet? Is their coloring different? Are they strong, frail, fat or thin or grotesque? What is their character like? Are they sweet, horrible, evil or brave? Check out the templates and add the details. Dialogue. So what can the basics of dialogue do for your novel, and why should you learn to write it? Well, let us have a peek. How dialogue benefits your fiction. Dialogue can reveal the character, reveal or advance relationships, advance the story, let you vary the pace, convey information to the character and readers. With regards to the last point, if your character needs to learn some information from another character, writing dialogue is usually the easiest way to make that happen. But if you just want to let your reader know something the characters already knows, it would be best to convey that in the regular narration. Writing dialogue is also a way to show rather than tell, as you are letting the reader hear the exact words the characters say, rather than giving them a summary. Tip to how is the characters doing the action or telling the tale. When information is needed to tell as the narrator, you telling your readers what happened. Too much of this can slow the pace of your story. Always open a new paragraph every time you have a different speaker. The proper format for writing dialogues is that every new speaker in a sequence must be assigned a new paragraph, so that when you have two characters speaking alternately, you must assign each speaker with a new paragraph as they take turns to speak. New paragraphs let readers keep pace with the changing speakers and keep the page from becoming cluttered. Tip check your favorite book and see how the dialogue is written, and you may get a clearer picture of what we are discussing. Notice how each speaker has a new paragraph even if they only say one word. The most common way of marking dialogue to inform the reader somebody is speaking within a novel is with the use of open and closed quotation marks. You will see an example of this when we check out tags later on. The challenges of writing dialogue. Good dialogue should do three things simultaneously. It should sound authentic. The characters would speak as if they were real people, not be an exact replica of real speech, which is often pretty boring. Good dialogue must leave all the boring bits out. It should say as much as possible in a few words. Have a purpose in terms of the story, unlike real speech which often has little purpose. A good piece of dialogue illustrates a change or stepping stone in a relationship or plot. Tip at this stage in your writing, I would advise you not to try and write your dialogue in an accent or dialect. This is for really experienced dialogue writers, otherwise it can sound very odd and unrealistic. But I want my readers to know it is a Frenchman talking. You may ask, okay, in that case describe the man accent as French. You should not have to do this too often with the same character, as your readers will have taken that information on board. Most writers will choose to intersperse some narrative elements within the dialogue. The narration can include dialogue tags. These will identify which character says what. Thoughts, observations, and perceptions of the main character or narrator. Exposition, such as information the reader needs to know to understand the context of the dialogue. Description of the setting and what else is happening in the scene. Writing dialogue tags. Standard dialogue tags use the verb said or says in present tense narration along with the name of the speaker. For instance, Paul said Olive, I said, or she said. You can also use a variety of other verbs in your dialogue tags, such as replied, argued, cajoled, spoke, stated, exclaimed, cried, shouted, whispered, cautioned, interjected, asked, etc. Most of the time, you are better off writing dialogue tags with some form of said. Unlike other verbs, said doesn't call attention to itself, so it keeps the reader's attention on what the characters are saying, which is usually an important part. You will sometimes see alternate verbs, perhaps coupled with adverbs or other modifiers to create more elaborate dialogue tags, but these can be a little distracting. Here is an example using fancier dialogue tags. Good morning, I exclaimed briskly. Morning, Jenny replied sullenly. You are wearing a new dress, I observed shrewdly. Yes, she responded with pleasure. I decided to try a new style and color. I queried sincerely, Is this the first time you've worn such a deep blue? No, she denied, laughing. But it has been a while. I reassured her tactfully. Well, it looks great. Did you see how elaborate tags can sound a little pretentious? They can also be redundant. For instance, if a character's line ends in a question mark, do we really need to say he queried? Similarly, if a character is tactful, that should be apparent from his words. You shouldn't need to say he spoke tactfully. Now let us look at the same passage with standard dialogue tags and see the results. Good morning, I said. Morning, said Jenny. You are wearing a new dress, I said. Yes, she said. I decided to try something different. I said, is this the first time you've worn such a deep blue? No, she said. But it has been a while. Well, it looks great, I said. Did you see the difference? The standard tags are less distracting. However, we can go a little further, and cut all unnecessary tags out. Not every line of dialogue needs a tag, and unnecessary tags can be distracting. So my advice would be to eliminate all unnecessary tags whenever possible. Check this same passage with a minimum of tags. Good morning, I said. Morning. You are wearing a new dress. Yes, said Jenny. Decided to try something different. Is this the first time you've worn such a deep blue? No, but it has been a while. Well, it looks great. Can you see with just 2 characters, a couple of tags near the start of the dialogue can be enough to establish the speaking order? When writing longer passages, you may want to insert a tag now and then, just in case the reader loses track of the order. And if you have more than 2 characters in a scene, you may need more dialogue tags. When to use non-standard tags? Of course, non-standard tags have their uses. For instance, an occasional adverb can signal when a character's attitude is opposite to his or her words. For example, "Oh, lovely to meet you," he said sarcastically. "Have waited ages for this moment." Here, the reader might not recognize the sarcasm without the adverb. Similarly, you can use a tag like "I said tactfully," to let the reader know that your character thinks he is tactful, when in fact he isn't. Sometimes, using alternative verbs can also add clarity, as in, "V never seen that document before in my life, I lied." Dialogue is not only exciting to use, it can move your story along at a rattling pace. To check how your dialogue is developing, try reading it out aloud, or if you can bear it, ask somebody to read it to you. If not, use the text-to-voice facility on your computer, or try one of the many free or paid software programs you can get on the internet. To hear your character speaking is exhilarating, although they may sound a little flat. You can get a really good idea if you need to improve anything. Chapter 7. You now have the knowledge to write your book. Get writing. At this stage, we have discussed how to rid yourself of your self-doubts and procrastination, and have locked away your fears. Get started and develop some ideas. What genres there are and may have decided which one is right for you. Begin writing your book, and what questions to ask to move your story along. Set your character goals and the consequences. Use conflict to give tension to your story. To structure your story with a beginning, middle and ending. To structure your scenes and paragraphs. To map your plot outline, use dialogue and its challenges. You can see from that list how much you have already achieved so far. Don't worry if it all has and sunk in yet, especially if you are really new to writing. It will become clearer as you actually begin to write. I have intentionally kept this book as plain and simple as possible. My aim was not to overload you with too much information at this stage, in order to encourage you to write that book of yours. But if you feel you are able to absorb more information, there are thousands of more in-depth books on the market about writing a book. You have now got enough basics to start writing your story. When we first start writing, we often choose the same form of storytelling similar to that of our favorite books. This is because our brains have spent a good deal of time with that style, and it is familiar and comfortable to us. However, just because your favorite author uses a particular style of narration, this doesn't mean it will be the best for the book you're writing. If you take the time to consider other styles and approaches, or, even better still, try writing in several different modes, you may discover other styles may bring your story to life more powerfully. So, what are the options we can look at? On the most basic level, narrative form can be categorized in 3 ways. Past tense: the events of the plot are depicted as occurring sometime before the current moment or the time at which the narrative was constructed or expressed to an audience. For example, they had a lovely time. They had been to a new restaurant. Past and present tense are most common. Novels written in the future tense are rare because it is more challenging to sustain for long periods, though there will always be exceptions. Present tense: the events of the plot are depicted as occurring now, the current moment and real time. For example, They are having a lovely time. They found a new restaurant. Future tense. Extremely rare in literature, this tense portrays the events of the plot as occurring sometime in the future. Often, these upcoming events are described such that the narrator has foreknowledge or supposed foreknowledge of the future. Some future tense stories have a prophetic tone. They will have a lovely time. They will find a new restaurant. Have you decided on the mode point of view of your narrative? There are 4 main points of view. First person. The first person point of view is told from one of the characters' points of view, usually the main character of your story, and will use pronouns like I and we throughout to indicate the narrator's involvement in the book's events. This narrative point of view is often used in fiction to help draw the reader into the text. The reader will be aware of the narrator's unvoiced feelings and thought processes, and this can make him feel like he's taking part within the story himself. Most autobiographies are written in the first-person point of view as the author is retelling the stories of their own life. Second person. The second-person point of view is very rarely used because of the difficulties the author will have to maintain this mode throughout a longer story. This point of view uses you to address another person. While this method can be useful in instructional and tutorials, it can often confuse readers. On occasions, a fiction writer will use the second-person point of view to allow a story's narrator to directly address his younger self. Third person. The third person allows everyone to speak and tell the story from their own point of view. They will use he said or she said when writing the dialogue. This point of view is used in both fiction and non-fiction writing and is also the standard for formal essays and academic works. It is the most flexible and widely used point of view and adds a sense of objectivity to the work as the events or facts unfold on their own. This is probably the best point of view mode to use when you are still inexperienced, and it will help if you pretend you are telling someone else about each character so that it remains in the third person. I have included a quick sketch above of some of the narrative storytelling modes for your information and to get you started. If you wish to go into greater depth, there are thousands of wonderful creative writing books out there. I would advise you not to get too involved or get anxious if it feels a little complicated to begin with. I don't want you to worry and be put off your writing. As your writing develops, things will become clearer to you. Tip. Make sure you back up your work frequently. You do not want to risk losing your precious manuscript. There are many ways to safely accomplish this, with free software, or the easier way is with a storage flash pen, but make sure you keep it safe place and not exposed to the elements. Time management. Your main task will be at this stage for you to start to write. No more procrastination. Sit down and write. Don't worry about your spelling, and don't worry about your grammar. Just get your story down on paper, but don't push yourself. To begin, start with 300 words about a page and make this the minimum amount you will write at each session. So check the amount of time, give or take, those 300 words took you to write, and then work the time into your schedule. Try to work in some time on a daily basis. This will help you get into the habit of writing. But again, this is and vital if you not on a deadline like many professional writers. Tip. If you have completed your story plan outline, you will find it quicker and easier to write with your plan on hand. Before you begin, let us look at the basics. You will initially require a computer with a processor if Microsoft Word software or any other software you find easy to use. You don't need the internet bit unless you want to do more research as you go along. A quiet space. This can be difficult in a busy household, but if you can find a little corner, this would be ideal. Think of an area that is not being used, maybe a shed, recess under the stairs, or a corner in your bedroom. A desk or table at the correct height to afford a comfortable writing position. A comfortable chair. Any chair will do as long as it keeps you in the correct posture. A light. This will be essential if you are using your shed or a small cubby hole. You will need enough light to ensure you don't get eye strain. A little music may be of benefit to some. A pen and pad to write more ideas and any to-do list for later. And the most important item is you did it. No more excuses. It is time to write. You have all the basic information and equipment to begin. Before I leave you to write your book, remember, it is your book. You do not have to write in chronological order. You can start anywhere within your story so long as you are able to piece it together in the end. In this chapter, we have discussed how to get writing, and what questions need asking to move your story on. Narrative form and points of view. Time management. Ensuring you have your story outline, so you can refer to it and jog your memory. What basics you will require to begin writing your story to regularly back up your work. Good luck, and I will see you in the next chapters when you have completed your first draft. and we will discuss how to edit and proofread your book. Tip: make sure you take frequent breaks if you are writing in long sessions. Not only will it prevent your muscles from getting stiff, it will stimulate your brain. Coming up in later chapters, you will be shown how to make a free ebook cover, and how to insert your table of contents pages, with hyperlinks for your ebook. Chapter 8: Editing and Proofreading Made Simple. Editing, proofing and formatting. You have finished the first draft of your novel. Congratulations! How do you feel? There is a feeling quite like it, is there? If you haven't finished writing your book, don't worry. You have already begun, and you are on your way. Don't forget, if you get stuck, go back to your story outline. Take a break and get back on track. If you haven't started yet, what is stopping you? Go back and look at the list of hurdles again. See which ones you can knock down immediately and make a list of those that will require a little more attention. Do not let fear and procrastination steal away your dreams. You can do it. I took 50 years to reach my goal, but I did it. There is nothing stopping you except your fear. Don't wait as long as I did. Be braver than I was, and go for it. Do it now. Start writing your dream book today. Start with one sentence, but start today. When you have finished your first draft, join me here in Chapter 8 to get your book ready to publish. The importance of book editing is to guarantee your material is clear and consistent. The object of your book is to hold the reader's attention. This will only happen when the reader isn't jumping over errors and pausing at mistakes as they try to comprehend what you, as the author, is saying. Editing makes for a better book, resulting in a more enjoyable read for your book buyers. In some ways, I found editing both tedious and enjoyable. Strange, I know. I did need to spend quite a lot of time editing my book, which I found quite tedious at times, but I was also able to read my work and think, and too bad, with a tinge of pride. You may find when you go back to the beginning of your book you may have more errors as you will have improved with the progress of your writing. This too can give you a little boost. So, there are positives to the task of editing. I obviously had to do my own editing and proofreading, and I am presuming it will be the same for you too. There are numerous editors and proofreaders available on the internet if you wish to go down that road. Some advocate that once you have typed the ending at the bottom of your manuscript you should put it away for a few weeks, and then you begin to edit it with fresh eyes. This does sound a good idea, but I am afraid I failed miserably. I could wait to get my book edited and then published. Again, this choice is yours, so once you have added your last full stop, decide how you want to go. There are different methods to editing, and I don't believe there is a right way so long as the end results are the same. So you have a choice to follow somebody else's example or do it your way. Whether you wish to edit your book as a whole or by chapters or divide it into smaller sections, the best approach would be to edit it as a single unit. Many authors use a ruler and edit sentence by sentence. Especially if this is your first attempt at book writing, you may also find it useful to have your story summary or plot outline handy. Start by reading your manuscript, and try and look at it how you would imagine your readers would. Have a pen and pad handy and jot down any glaring mistakes. Did the story flow? Are there any plot holes you may have noticed or things that don't add up? Check with your summary sheet. Remember, you know how the story unfolds. Your reader does. Is it clear how your plot got from A to B? Now start your edit with the simple stuff. You may have noticed when you read your manuscript that spelling errors and grammatical mistakes jump out at you. Make sure you use your spell check. Your first edit should be a sweeping copy edit to clean up all the little typos you miss when you were writing. Start thinking about the rhythm of your sentences. Did you notice any repeated words? And did you use the same sentence constructions or paragraph patterns? For example, 2 long paragraphs followed by a very short one over and over. Tip: for this stage I used 2 excellent pieces of software. Both were invaluable in helping me to improve my grammar. They aren't free, but I needed them. AutoCAD Editing Wizard and http www.grammarly.com. After fixing the glaring errors, have another read through and fix any significant issues. Are there any more scenes you need to add to make your story flow better? Perhaps a good chunk of backstory is needed for one of your characters, or the ending happens way too fast to be satisfying for your readers. Plot where these scenes should go before writing them. Check if any of the new information changes the later scenes. Outline any major rewrites on your summary pages to keep track of them and ensure continuity. Now try reading your manuscript out loud. If this isn't possible, use your text-to-speech program. Use earphones and don't look at the script as your eyes can play tricks and ignore errors. Sit with a pen and pad, jot down any errors, in any places the wording does and flow or make sense. It is time to seek some feedback. We discussed earlier with regards to those of you who were fearful of other people's reactions to you writing. Well, now that you have accomplished your goal or are almost there, it is the opportune time to let people know just what you can do. I made the awful mistake of not letting anybody see my manuscript before I published on Kindle. When I confided to a friend, I had written and published a book, she obviously wanted to read it. Oh, how I wish my fear and stubbornness had not let me confide to friends earlier. I had made so many mistakes even though I had read it, rewritten bits, listened to it and reread it again. There were still terrible mistakes I had not seen. I was too close emotionally to it. I had to republish my book, which thankfully is very easy with Kindle, and my friends gave me some much-needed constructive criticism. I knew what my characters were about to do, so had left parts out of my story of how they achieved some of their goals. I had also written that one of my characters had ate Edward off, when I had meant he had been allowed to get off the coach. My friend pointed out it sounded as if poor Edward was a firework and had been ate off. We had a giggle, but I was ashamed I had allowed it be published in the first place. So please be vigilant and do seek help from those you can trust to be honest with you. Don't do this before you self-edit, because you want to have a good idea of the strengths and weakness you perceive before handing your work to someone else. Please try not to over-edit. Remember, there is no such thing as perfection within the written word. I still have errors in my book. Nobody has said anything as yet, so I am presuming they're either very kind to me or a few small errors I missed has not marred their enjoyment of my book. I still find huge errors in other books I read that have been professionally edited. All I advise is that you do your ultimate best, seek out another pair of eyes and opinions, and go for it. TIP. I found sending my manuscript via email to my Kindle account and then reading it on my Kindle with pad and pen in hand very useful to edit and proofread. Editing is crucial, and can make or break a perfectly good story. With this in mind, I have set out a short checklist for you. Have you read through your text several times? Have you checked the sentence structures, the word choices, the spelling, and finally the punctuation? Have you double-checked all your facts, figures, and proper names? In addition to reviewing for correct spelling, make sure that all the information in your text is accurate. All capital letters are in place and correct. Have you read your text aloud or asked a friend or colleague to read it aloud for you? You may be able to hear a problem, a faulty verb ending, for example, or missing word that you haven't noticed. You can also use text-to-speech. Have you checked your spelling with a dictionary or thesaurus so that you know the full meaning of the words you have used? The spelling checker cannot tell you if you have used the correct word. For example, the word right and right all sound the same but have very different meanings. Collins' glossary of confused words is very useful. Have you checked and rechecked your manuscript? You will probably need to do it at least 5 times. I have heard of some self-editors who read their text backwards, and find this helps them to focus on individual words rather than sentences. Formatting your book. I do not include how to format your book for publishing on Kindle, as this book is about writing, not publishing. I see no reason to reinvent the wheel, when Kindle already does an excellent selection of books that are absolutely free, and will guide you step by step through the process. I used some of them to publish my book, and I found it really easy. So go to the Amazon Kindle store and see what will suit your needs. Chapter 9. How to format your table of contents with step-by-step instructions. Table of contents. Most books have a table of contents, or TOC for short. So what's special about a self-published Kindle one? Have you noticed ebooks do not have page numbers? So how will you know how to get to a certain chapter? Easy. From the TOC you click onto the chapter you want to read and like magic you are directed to it. How can that happen, you may ask? In this chapter, I will show you how to format the table of contents TOC for your ebook so your readers can hop from chapter to chapter. Open up your Word document manuscript and make sure you have formatted your entire chapters as heading 1 and any subtitles with heading 2. FIG 1. Example of using heading 1 for the chapter. FIG 1. FIG 2. Example of using heading 2 for the subtitle. GT writing. FIG 2. Click onto the place you wish your TOC to be. If you require another page, go to Insert and click onto Blank Page up on the left of your toolbar. At the top of your blank page, type Table of Contents and center it in the middle of the page. Go to Reference on your toolbar. Click onto the Table of Contents on the left of the toolbar. Click Insert Table of Contents. See FIG 3. FIG 3. A pop-up will appear. See FIG 4. Make sure the HAL page number, is not ticked and the tick box opposite used for hyperlinks is ticked. Click onto OK and your list of chapters and contents should be displayed under your heading. If you wish to change it, go back to reference and either go through the process again. When it will ask if you wish to replace the list, click yes. The alternative is to go to reference and click onto table of contents and then click onto the remove table of contents in the bottom, and start again. I have only shown 2 levels of headings, although I only actually use one for the example. CFIG 5. That is it. Chapter 10. How to make a fabulous ebook cover for free. How to make a free ebook cover. Every book requires a cover, whether it is in print form or an ebook. The function of the cover is to catch your potential reader attention, which will hopefully turn into a sale. With so many books now being self-published and are readily available on the internet for prospective readers to browse through and buy, you will need a cover that will stand out from the rest. Especially if there are other books similar to yours, you need to attract people to stop at your stall and buy and not wander off, tempted by other book covers. In this chapter, my aim is to show you how to make a cover for your ebook for free. It is in a very basic form, but will give you a springboard to test your creativity and see what you can achieve. You can get professional cover designers who will be able to create a smart professional cover for you. This may cost quite a bit of money and would be the ideal scenario if you can afford it. To choose a cover designer, you could surf the web. There are plenty to be found there. The short tutorial is for those of you like me who do not have the money to spend on extra so early into our writing careers. Photographs and images. I created the covers for both of my books, The Legend of Grace Roscoe and How to Write a Book with No Experience. The first book cover cost me nothing as I used a picture from the public domain, and for the second book I paid just .00 for a stock photo. FREDIGITALPHOTOS.NET. This would have been free if I had chosen the smaller size. Your choice of an image will of course depends on what you will want your cover to look like, what subject you have written about. You can obtain a variety of images from various places across the net for free. You must check any image you decide upon are royalty free, as these will cost money to find the right free image for you. I have listed a few places to start your search. For example, take your own photograph. This is really free. Think about what you want to display on your cover and then search for that image. It will be somewhere waiting to be discovered. Clip art can be a good choice, but again check that they are royalty free. There are thousands of sites on the web providing stock photo, but be warned, they are not all free. I have only used FREDIGITALPHOTOS.NET, so cannot comment on any other sites. Check through the public domain photo on the internet. This is only a short list, but if you are prepared to spend the time and trawl throughout the web, you will find what you are looking for. So, now you have found your image, ask yourself some of the following questions. Will it look good in black and white as it does in color? Kindle readers are only black and white at the moment. Will it help convey what your book is about? Is the color appropriate? Will it look good as a thumbnail image? Have you checked against similar books to yours? Are you happy with the image? Don't just make it. If you can find the right one, keep looking. It is crucial you find the right one for your book and that you feel confident displaying it to the world. Tip: make sure you save the image you are going to use onto your desktop for easy retrieval. You have the image you are happy to use. Now let us start creating your ebook cover. I mentioned earlier how I had created my own covers with absolutely no experience whatsoever. I am not even very computer savvy. I spent quite a while trying to work and get it right. With a bit of luck, you can benefit from my trial and errors. This tutorial will cover a very basic but acceptable ebook cover. We will be using Microsoft Word. Creating your basic ebook cover. To begin, open a blank Word document, type in your title and the name you are going to use as the author. Use a large font for the title and a smaller one for the author name. Experiment with fonts of different shapes and size, but do remember you will need the wording on your cover to be clear and easy to read. Now hit your return button until a new blank page pops up. The cursor will be blinking on the new page. FIG 1 FIG 1 TIP. If the screenshots are difficult for you to read, press the center of the image. If you are using a Kindle and a magnifying glass will appear, press this to enlarge the image. If you would prefer a PDF copy you could print off, send me an email at ruthwelsby@aol.com. Put PDF for ebook covers in the subject and I will send you one. To continue, click on Insert, and then click onto the picture icon. A set of all your files will pop up. Click onto the desktop where you saved your image, click onto the image you wish to use and then click Insert. CFIG 2. I used my forest image for this example. FIG 2. Now go back and highlight your title and author's name. Note I have only put title for this example. CFIG 3. FIG 3. After you have done the highlighting, now click onto text box and choose which one you prefer. I have ticked the basic one, but the choice is yours. CFIG 4 below. FIG 4. Okay. So you now have your text box. This is where I have to confess I got into a bit of a muddle at this stage. My title disappeared. You are supposed to be able to stretch the handles of the text box to reveal your title underneath. ICOULD and make this happen. Maybe those of you who know a little more about computers will be able to do that. But for those of you just like me with no experience, this is what I did. I wrote my title again inside the box. Sorted in FIG 5 below. I have left the original writing inside the box to show you how it looked before you delete it, and just leave your title and name showing. I have also indicated how you can enlarge the box, with little arrows pointing away from the box. FIG 5. Delete the redundant writing in the box and just leave your title. Make sure the title is how you want it to look. Stretch out the box to the size you want. You can leave it square or maybe as a panel across the whole page. To do this, you may have to extend the ruler at the top of the page to allow this. Now go to Page Layout on your toolbar and click onto Page Borders. A box will pop up. Make sure you click onto Shading at the top of the box. Click the O color box and another box will drop down containing the color palette. CFIG 6. FIG 6. Pick a color to complement your image, but quite a few shades lighter so that it will stand out and your title wordings will be clearly seen. With the image on the second page in full view, you can have a good time experimenting until you create the color you want to use. Once you have chosen your color, go to your image and click onto it, making sure the handles are activated. The little round balls at each corner and half between the corners. Look at FIG 5 for the example on the text box. Now begin to stretch your image to fill the page. You may have to extend the top and side rulers to allow this to happen. You now have one page with your colored title box and another page filled with your chosen image. Now we will come to a really exciting part. Go to Page Layout and click onto your image to activate it. Then click onto Wrap Text. This will not activate until you have done the same to your image. Another box will drop down. CFIG 7. With pictures of little dogs, click onto the one that says Behind Text. Like magic, your image will move across the page and sit behind your text. FIG 7. When your newly created ebook cover is to your satisfaction, all you have to do now is to trim any edges by cropping your cover, and then save it on your desktop so you will know where it is when you are asked to upload to Kindle when you publish your book. If for any reason you don't like your new cover, continue to experiment until you find one you are happy with. TIP. To see how your ebook cover will look on a Kindle reader, try emailing it as an attachment to your Kindle account. Contact Kindle if you can remember your Kindle email address. Conclusion. Well done. You have either finished your book or else you have read up to this section with the intention of writing and finishing your book. If neither of the above statements applies to you, and you are still unsure about embarking on such a mammoth project, ask yourself a question. What have you got to lose? Some of your valuable time, maybe. In that case, your dream has and become a burning desire to you. Try reading this book again and see if you really want to write your book. You can do it. This book has been designed as a quick sketch with enough information for you to begin to write your own book and get it published. It is up to you whether you finish it. You will need perseverance, but you have got this far. It would be a shame not to put what you have learned into action. You may even begin to thirst for more knowledge and information. Wait just a little, and get your first chapter completed first. If you then need more in-depth knowledge, get it as you write and progress with your story. Do not put off writing by obtaining too much theory. Practices will help you write your book. If your ambition is still to write a book, take the action required to begin to write now. Do not delay. Do it now. Today. Without the action, your dream will never ever be fulfilled. I know how daunting those first steps can be. You may have a few little wobbles along the way, but keep going. Writing a book is hard work, but the rewards are great and far outnumber any of the negatives. Your self-esteem and confidence will soar. Get your story mapped out today, and you are halfway there. We have discussed how you can write a book with little or no experience, and very few skills in the writing field. I have shared with you my experiences and have laid out this guide in short basic steps you can easily understand. What you will have learned so far is how to write a book with no experience, and that it can be done. What challenges can prevent you from writing, and how to deal with them. Where to begin. Starting one of the hardest parts of your book. Setting out your story. What story goals, plot outlines and structure means to your story. How to write dialogue. With a simple but successful guide, you have gained the knowledge to be able to write your book. How to simply edit and proofread your manuscript to get it near perfect. How to format your table of contents. How to make a fabulous ebook cover for free. Congratulations! Check your manuscript one more time. Check your table of contents works. Make sure all relevant details are correct, such as times, dates and information. Are you ready to publish? Then go for it and good luck. Don't forget to download Amazon's free books, How to Publish Your Book. Please let me know how you get on. Remember, you can get a free PDF file of how to make your ebook cover and how to format the table of contents. Just email me, ruthwelsby@aol.com. Check out my website, http://ruthwelsby.co.uk, and join me at my blog, http://bloggingwithtruth.com. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook. Please read my other book, http://the-legend-ebook/dp/book/dp/booju209/. Thank you for reading this book. If you enjoyed it, would you please leave me a review on Amazon Kindle bookstore site? Thank you. Regards, Ruth C. Welsby.